Good evening and welcome. You're watching Primetime News on TV1. Bringing you the news, I'm Kumar Singha. Up first in your headlines.
News First headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Spread of the Delta variant is the reason behind the increase in deaths. New procedure for COVID-19 tests. Ministry of Health announces that people above 60 will be prioritized in the vaccination drive. Focus on science and not superstition. A request from the Minister of Mass Media.
Penny Bila make uttara hambenne naha. Munti gangawala nemei. Boku gaane dammat make uttara ganna bෑ. Uttare Indiya vidyaarthika uttara.
Indian naval ship carrying 100 metric tons of oxygen reaches Sri Lanka. Anand Dipalitha released on bail. Colombo Additional Magistrate says expression of views based on facts is not an offence that warrants a suspect to be placed under remand custody. Final Randoli Perahera in Kandy today.
News First headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
As it was mentioned in your headlines this evening, the final Randoli Perahera of the historic Asala Maha Perahera of the Temple of the Sacred Tooth Relic took to the streets today. The general public were not allowed to witness the Perahera in person due to the current situation in the country. The Perahera began at the auspicious time 6:44 p.m. The Nadungamue Raja, the ceremonial tusker, carried the sacred tooth relic casket at the Asala Perahera. 70 elephants marched in procession, and the Diyavadna Nilame Pradeep Nilangadala had taken steps to organize the Perahera according to tradition. The Perahera will end with the traditional Diyakapima ritual, a water cutting ceremony.
Buddhist devotees across the country engaged in religious observances at their homes for the Nikini full moon Poya day. Religious observances were conducted at temples and other places of worship without the participation of the general public due to the pandemic in the country. Many incidents of historic importance in the Buddhist culture, including the attainment of Arahatship by the Lord Buddha's chief disciple Anandathera and the first Dhamma Sangayana or the Dhamma Convocation, which was held in the Satpatthani cave in Rajagahanora many centuries ago, happened on a Poya day like today. The 213th edition of the Amadam Sisila Dhamma Sermon, conducted under a concept of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, was held at Temple Trees today. The sermon was delivered by Dr. Kirulapane Sudassithera. The event was held while strictly adhering to COVID-19 regulations. It is only during a calamity like this that we understand the true price of a breath of fresh air that people need to live. So if we can plant at least one tree, that will be a blessing to the entire nation. If we can even for a moment think that we should do something to protect the others, that would be a form of mental immunity that would protect you from harm.
The Mahanayaka Theros of the Malwatu and the Askiri chapters of the Siam sect praised the decision taken by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to place the country under a quarantine curfew.
Many of our Mahanayaka Theras and other venerable Theras had requested the President and the Prime Minister to impose a quarantine curfew. During his address to the nation, the President pointed out how all of this will affect the economy of the country. But there is nothing else that we can do. We must save lives. The President, during his address to the nation, stated that he will impose a quarantine curfew across the country. Therefore, the general public must make use of this decision. I invoke blessings on all of us that we may be able to save this nation from the COVID-19 pandemic. At this moment, we must consider our national responsibility first, while other considerations, including politics, must come second. This is not the time to stage protests. If the economy of the country collapses, it will be extremely difficult for us to curb the spread of this pandemic. Unfortunately, many people are not united in their ambition to achieve this. We would like to kindly remind you that we must act wisely, focusing on the long run during these troubled times.
Making headlines tonight, Colombo Additional Magistrate Lochani Abe Vikrama today noted that expressing opinions based on factual information is not an offence that warrants a suspect to be placed under remand custody. This was stated when the case pertaining to Ananda Palita, a trade union activist of the Jatika Sevaka Sangame, who was arrested by the Criminal Investigation Department, was taken up today.
Ananda Palita was arrested by the CID for allegedly making a false statement regarding the supply of petroleum. He was released on 2 personal bails of 1 million rupees each by the Colombo Additional Magistrate. The CID stated in court that granting bail to the suspect would allow him to make further vague statements that might negatively affect the lives of the general public, and therefore bail should be denied. The Additional Magistrate pointed out to the CID that the people of this country are granted with the freedom of speech under Article 14(1) of the Constitution. The case is postponed to the 29th of next month. When a member of a trade union makes a statement, that person is being produced before court. The direct message that is being given here is, do not say anything against the government. This not only affects Ananda Palita, this corrupts the entire society. Fortunately, we have an independent judiciary to face these types of incidents.
අපිට ස්වාධීන අධිකරණ පද්ධතියක් තියෙන හින්දා අපිට සහනයක් ලබා ගන්න ලැබුණා. මේක අපි දකින්නේ ආනන්ද පාලිත මහත්මයා.
This is not a personal issue of Ananda Palita. This is a blow to democracy of this nation. This is a problem to the freedom of speech.
කතා කරන්න තියෙන නිදහස සම්බන්ධයෙන් ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඇටියට.
What is the reason behind the surge in COVID-19 deaths?
The rapid spread of the Delta variant in the country has resulted in an increase in deaths. This is a matter of speed. The virus allows itself to spread faster by adapting and mutating. We need to adapt to its changes and speed up our process.
What steps have been taken to curb the spread of the virus? According to statistics, 91% of the people who have succumbed to the virus have not received even 1 dose of the vaccine. That is a very serious situation. 7% of the people who have died have received 1 dose of a vaccine. Only 1% of people have died after receiving both doses of the vaccine, and that is due to various other complications related to the virus. The vaccination drive in the country has prioritized giving the jab to senior citizens who are over the age of 60. If there are any senior citizens over the age of 60 at your homes or in your neighbouring areas who have not been vaccinated as of yet, please inform the Sri Lanka Army, the Medical Officer of Health, the Grama-Niladhari or the Divisional Secretariat about it. After doing so, the Sri Lanka Army personnel will arrive at their homes and carry out the vaccination. The mobile vaccination program conducted by the Sri Lanka Army was in operation within the Western Province today as well. 10 vehicles have been deployed to carry out this operation. According to Sri Lanka Army, 1 vehicle has been deployed to carry out the mobile vaccination program in Palindanuwara in the Kalutara district. 3 vehicles each have been deployed to Biyagama and Mattakkuliya. 2 vehicles have been deployed to Panagoda. 1 vehicle has been deployed to carry out the mobile vaccination program in surrounding areas of the Sri Lanka Army headquarters. The vaccination drive carried out at vaccination centres across the country was in effect today as well. This was the manner in which the vaccines were administered to the general public at the Vihara Mahadevi Open Air Theatre in Colombo today. Senior citizens who are over the age of 60 in Hangwella were vaccinated by the medical officers of health at their homes today. There are 11.5 people in this country who are over the age of 30. We commenced this program targeting that population. Approximately, we need 23 million doses to vaccinate this population. As of now, we have received 19.5 million doses. We will receive the remainder in the coming few weeks. Our target is to administer both doses to the population over 30 in Sri Lanka. When you take the entire population of the country, we have given the first dose to 55% of the population in Sri Lanka. Out of the total population, 25% have been administered both doses of a vaccine. That is 1/4 of the population. The next phase of our plan is to vaccinate the population who are between the ages of 18 and 30. There is a population of 3.2 million there. That will be our next target. According to the rate of our vaccination drive, we will be able to achieve that too.
කතාවට එන්නත ලබා දීම. එතනත් ඉන්නවා දල වශයෙන් මිලියන 3.2ක් පමණ. ඒක තමයි ඊළඟ අරමුණ. ඉතින් මේ යන විදිහට අපිට ඒකත් ළඟා කරගන්න හැකි මට්ටමක් තියෙනවා.
The opinion of a former chief epidemiologist.
Vaccination is not the only option left to curb the spread of this pandemic. The authorities were trying to increase the immunity levels rapidly, and that is how we missed those above the age of 60. That is how those deaths occurred. The surge in COVID-19 cases cannot be controlled by merely vaccinating people. To curb the spread of the virus, we must impose travel restrictions. As a state sector employee who served this country for 21 years, I would like to request the authorities to extend the ongoing quarantine curfew for at least 10 more days. This is a request made not only by myself, but all specialist doctors.
දීර්ඝ කරන්න වෙයි කියලා. ඒකම මම විතරක් නෙමේ සියලුම විශේෂඥ වෛද්‍යවරුන් මේ මතයේ ඉන්නවා.
This is now a battle between the vaccine and the virus. So far, we have been losing. We have obtained a relief period in an attempt to win this battle. The level of oxygen required now is around 30%. We are currently seeing a situation where an additional ward is required at the National Hospital once every few days. If the capacity at the National Hospital is reached, we will face a crisis. So we hope that this situation can be controlled to a certain degree with the ongoing travel restrictions. We are facing a very crucial time due to several variants of the virus being identified. What are we going to do if a new variant that is immune to the COVID-19 vaccines is identified? Israel has among the world's highest levels of vaccination for COVID-19, with 78% of those who are aged 12 and older fully vaccinated. Yet, the country is now logging one of the world's highest infection rates, with nearly 7,000 new cases reported daily. More than half are in fully vaccinated people, underscoring the extraordinary transmissibility of the Delta variant and stoking concerns that nations must focus on the long-term strategic management of COVID-19.
Did the policy of conducting COVID-19 tests change?
The policy has changed to a certain extent. What we are currently doing is conducting PCR tests on the targeted population. In addition, the rapid antigen tests are primarily used as it is scientifically proven that a rapid antigen test is sufficient to identify an infected patient with symptoms. Therefore, our policy changed. Previously, a PCR test was used for those who completed their quarantine process. However, following recommendations made by the committee appointed for this around a month or two ago, we now conduct rapid antigen tests. The number of PCR tests conducted has not reduced. Around 20,000 to 22,000 PCR tests were conducted in the recent past. We were instructed to conduct PCR tests during random testing procedures as much as possible. We are working hard to reduce the fatality rate in the country. We have been told to prioritize those above the age of 60. However, when the number of cases increases, the rising of the death toll is inevitable.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa has proposed that the government reflects upon the false statements that they've made since coming into power and investigates them. Issuing a communique, the opposition leader points out that although he pointed out that the COVID-19 pandemic could enter Sri Lanka in January last year, the government dismissed all such statements and said that there is no such threat. He said that on the 5th of February last year, he proposed for face masks to be distributed among the general public for free, and the health minister at the time announced that there is no need for such a move. The opposition leader recalled that when the entire world was focused on vaccinating their citizens, responsible ministers threw pots into rivers and brought various unapproved tonics to parliament and consumed them. The opposition leader highlighted that although the importance and need for vaccines were highlighted on a number of occasions, the government tied their hand at various other techniques, and he even recalled how a senior minister in the government said that vaccines will be brought down when we need them. The opposition leader said that the government delayed the importation of vaccines and jeopardized the lives of the general public. In his release, the opposition leader pointed out that although on the 23rd of May, 2 ministers of the government assured the country that the government had sufficient funds, on the 17th of May, State Minister Sudarshini Fernandopulle had written to the Sri Lankan embassy in Australia requesting for funds from Sri Lankans living there as the government does not have sufficient funds. The opposition leader questioned the government as to what steps were taken against these contradictory statements made by ministers of the government. The opposition leader also questioned as to what steps were taken against the minister who made a false statement on having sufficient stocks of tocilizumab when he inquired on the matter on the 4th of May this year. You cannot find a solution after going behind myths. An Ayurvedic tonic will not solve this either. You will not be able to seek a solution to this issue even if you dump pots in gutters instead of throwing them in rivers. The solution to this is science. It is either Western medical treatment or indigenous medical treatment. We must make our first sacrifice for the health of our people. Against the pandemic, the second sacrifice must be made for the education of future generations. These are the two greatest sacrifices we can make during this era.
Medical staff are on the front lines in the nation's battle against COVID-19. This is an unfortunate experience a group of medical staff had to face opposite the Colombo National Hospital today. Most of these health workers are people who are leaving to their homes after working a night shift. They do not have transport facilities to be seated and travel, let alone maintain 1 meter distance in the bus. Isn't it the grave responsibility of all of us to provide at least the minimum transport facilities to these frontline health workers who are working tirelessly to combat the COVID-19 pandemic?
Before the general public makes sacrifices, the government must set an example. A minister has 8 or 9 vehicles, including the vehicles for his personal staff. First, reduce those 8 or 9 to 2 and set an example to the general public. A minister gets a fuel allowance of about 1 million rupees, including the fuel for his staff. Reduce that to about 100 to 150,000 rupees and show the people. We as the opposition have already started to do this. After allowing their friends to earn billions in profits, now they are saying that public servants will have to take a pay cut. First, look at the illegal profits that your friends have earned. Sugar that was only taxed 25 cents is now being sold to the general public at 180 to 190 rupees. I saw certain ministers of the Pohottua party saying that they have donated their salaries. As far as I know, the salary of a minister is about 65,000 rupees. We would like to ask all of these ministers to move out of their official residences because all of them have private residences in Colombo. How much money do they spend simply on air conditioning at these houses? They have begun to choke the people of this country and ridicule them. Advice of medical specialists was disregarded. Their stubborn decisions have resulted in 7,000 people losing their lives. Today, COVID-19 patients are dying in their homes. Over 70% of the people dying are above the age of 60. What did the government do? When they were rolling out the vaccine, they said we do not need to give it to those above the age of 60 first. They administered it to people between 30 and 60. The government must be held responsible for these deaths. ICU beds are not available. No new ICU beds were brought down. The government that says they do not have money to purchase these things have given massive tax concessions to sugar importers. Sugar that was imported for about 70 to 80 rupees and was taxed only 25 cents is being sold at 180 rupees today. The government is not trying to kill the people or further burden them. The government has a question because the people who demanded a lockdown are now asking as to why the country was closed down suddenly. The opposition cannot benefit by simply bringing out the number of deaths in the country. We condemn that. They are trying to change the public opinion in the country using this. The Trade Union Coordination Centre convened a media briefing today and announced that they are willing to provide the support required to realise the objectives of placing the country under a lockdown. This is not a time to ignore or exact vengeance. Let us all work together. We will give our support whenever possible. The health sector and medical staff are ready to pledge their support as well. We would like to request the government to avoid delaying this even further. If the President is of the same plan as the Trade Union Coordination Centre, we are ready to support the authorities to create a country free of COVID-19.
COVID වලින් තොරව ජීවත් වෙන්න අවශ්‍ය කරන සියලු සහයෝගය දෙන කියන කාරණේ කියන්නේ තමයි උත්සව සම්බන්ධීකරණ මධ්‍යස්ථානයේ අපේ උවමනාව.
Now, this information we received a short while ago. The total number of COVID-19 cases in Sri Lanka have surpassed the 4,000 mark. Now, this was with the newly detected cases that was today at 1,172. With that detection, the total number of cases in Sri Lanka stands at 4,282. In more local news now, the Indian Navy ship Shakti reached the Colombo harbour today with 100 tons of clinical oxygen. The ship sailed from Visakhapatnam port in India.
Indian Navy ship Shakti carrying 100 tons of clinical oxygen arrived at the Samagi container terminal of the Colombo port at 3:10 p.m.
India and Sri Lanka share an unbreakable and a long-standing friendship. As a result of that friendship, the Indian Navy has taken steps to transport this stock of oxygen. Indian Navy ship Shakti will arrive with another consignment of 40 tons of oxygen by 4 a.m. tomorrow.
So primarily it's a fleet support ship, and we are here to supply the containers to the Sri Lankan nation. It's a very noble initiative which the countries are taking. There is people who are in need in various places, and there are places where there is excess of supply available, and we have been stepping in and trying to meet the supply-demand gap which is there. And together, I think we can really help each other to overcome this problem which we are all going through.
The data cloud of the National Medicines Regulatory Authority continues to malfunction. Print media revealed today that the process of renewing the registration of medical drugs and equipment has been severely affected. Chairman of the National Medicines Regulatory Authority, Dr. Rasitha Wijayawantha, said that steps have been taken to ensure that there is no shortage of medicine and equipment need to face the COVID-19 pandemic in the country.
In 2018, the National Medicines Regulatory Authority began accepting online applications for registration of drugs and renewal of registration for the same. Accordingly, the data of the NMRA was stored on the government cloud operated by Sri Lanka Telecom under the supervision of the ICTA. The NMRA chose to hand over the management of the data cloud to a private entity through a tender process carried out by the ICTA. With the COVID-19 outbreak in the country, this data cloud was used extensively, and according to this notice published on the 15th of October last year, the renewal of registrations of all medical drugs and medical equipment was only done online.
The automated data system of the NMRA got deactivated on the 9th of July. All activities on this data system have stalled since then. I have lodged a complaint with the Criminal Investigations Department on this matter as well. I have been informed that they had obtained a court order and are conducting investigations into the matter together with the Moratuwa University. I hope to discuss the progress of this investigation with the Criminal Investigations Department next week.
Today, the Sunday Times reported the National Medicines Regulatory Authority is likely to grant a blanket renewal for registered drugs that are awaiting fresh licenses. The report goes on to add that at a meeting this week with NMRA, drug companies were told this was being considered as an interim measure. The report goes on to note that there is no solution yet for applications to register new drugs. Quoting sources, the Sunday Times points out that, quote, at present registrations have come to a grinding halt and they will have to take a decision with regard to the new drugs, unquote. The NMRA does not usually grant blanket registration to drugs. Drugs are registered provisionally for a period of 2 years or given a full registration valid for 5 years. Applications for renewals and approvals must be lodged at least 6 months before the licenses lapse. During this 6-month period, the NMRA can activate a license of a drug that is on the list list of drugs pending registration. The Sunday Times, quoting company sources, pointed out that it was vital that the pending registrations be activated, or companies would, by regulation, not be able to import those drugs. According to the report, all data on the application approved for registration and application submitted for renewal of registration was stored on the Lanka government cloud. The report added that the data of the NMRA on the Lanka government cloud had been erased by an employee of a private company that stored the data on behalf of the NMRA.
All operations based on the data that was uploaded on the cloud have stalled. We are facing issues in assessing the drugs that have been submitted for registration since last year, but we are conducting our assessment in a manner that would not affect the supply of essential drugs, including drugs and medical equipment, to curb the spread of COVID-19. There is no need to have any fears on that. The board of directors will meet and decide on it. We will make sure that there will be no shortage of any medicine or medical equipment in the country. We inquired into the progress of the investigations from the Criminal Investigations Department. The CID said that no statements have been recorded and that a technical investigation into the incident is being conducted together with the University of Moratuwa. How did sensitive information stored on the country's national data cloud disappear? More importantly, did the companies involved not have any responsibility to maintain a backup of these highly sensitive information? Should we allow such an important and sensitive operation to be completely destroyed as a result of being handed over to companies that do not even fulfill the minimum requirements needed to qualify to provide these services?
We are crossing over to a short commercial break. More local and international news on the other side. Stay tuned.
Valid your country and for yourself. Get vaccinated.
Greetings everybody, I am Angela Saniviratna, cinema, television, theatre artist and columnist. I'm here today to share a thought that has been on my mind for ever so long. People of my vintage, I'm proudly over 60. People of my vintage, I urge you, please get your vaccine immediately. If you have any underlying health issues like I did recently, please seek the advice of your doctor and get the vaccine as fast as you can.
A message to all senior citizens from News First.
Welcome back to the news. The De Soysa building in Slave Island, Colombo, considered to be over 150 years old, is being torn down by the Urban Development Authority. Director General of the Department of Archaeology, Professor Anura Manatunga, said that the building was being demolished despite the opposition of the Department of Archaeology.
The De Soysa building in Slave Island, Colombo, considered to be over 150 years old, is being torn down by the Urban Development Authority. Director General of the Department of Archaeology, Professor Anura Manatunga, said that the building was being demolished despite the opposition of the Department of Archaeology. The tenants of the De Soysa building have begun moving their families and businesses after the Urban Development Authority began demolishing the building. The demolition of the building was fast-tracked after a part of it collapsed in June. The UDA expedited the process to demolish the building in order to offer the land to the Indian-owned Tata Housing Development Company. Director General of the Department of Archaeology, Professor Anura Manatunga, said that the department objected to the demolition of this historic building, considered to be over 150 years old. He added that, however, no legal action can be taken against the UDA over the demolition, as the building had not been gazetted as a historical landmark under the Antiquities Ordinance of 1940. The Director General went on to note that there are many other locations of historic importance in Colombo that have not yet been gazetted as historic buildings under the Antiquities Ordinance, and that steps to gazette these landmarks have been expedited. The world over, buildings of historic importance and heritage value are preserved and serves to beautify and enhance the livability of a modern city. Modern development doesn't mean raising the past in order to make way for the future. On the contrary,
Modern city planning protects the past as it establishes the future. Shouldn't this be the way the city of Colombo is developed as well?
Now, it's been a week since Taliban took control of Afghanistan. Tens of thousands of people continue to crowd at the Kabul airport in sweltering heat, desperate to leave on evacuation flights. History with her stellar rise in international music charts, with no less than Amitabh Bachchan himself sharing her song Manike Mage Hite on his Twitter feed. And with that, it's a wrap of our news tonight. I'm Thalusha Kumar Singh along with our sign language interpreter for tonight, Brandy Cruz. Good night.
Yohani surpassed 1.28 million subscribers on her YouTube channel with her rise to fame with the latest track Manike Mage Hite featuring fellow local artist Satishan. The song featured on her YouTube channel surpassed 50 million views this evening and continues to rise. After requests poured in by thousands of her Indian fans to release a Malayalam and Hindi version of the song, Yohani released a Malayalam and Tamil rendition of the song, which have been topping charts in India.
Hi everyone, hope you are staying safe. Thank you so much for the amazing love and support you have shown me the past couple of days. I'm humbled by it. I have finished 12 new songs for my upcoming album Kella, and I can't wait to do a live show and launch it. This is my debut album and I'm so excited for it. I will be releasing a song from the album with a music video this year, so stay tuned. For all of you who are chasing their dreams, enjoy every part of the process and don't listen to anyone who says otherwise. Also, at the end of the day, it takes a team and it's not something we can do alone. I wish you good health and see you soon. Love you. This is Yohani. Manike